Professional football in America is a special game, a unique game. Played nowhere else on earth, it is a rare game. The men who play it make it so.
I believe it's about character. It's about who you are, what do you stand for, integrity.
The game is about life, and it's about what you have to do to pick yourself up, to make yourself the best you can possibly be.
I got a scholarship to Nebraska. I had a 17-year career with the Vikings.
It is the ups and downs of the game, the turmoil. Those are all parts of life.
It is my duty, I believe, is to get that message out that you can live with integrity, but you have to have some God in your life to do that.
I've always wanted to be great at everything I've done. I've always been a competitor. I've always showed humility. I'm a team guy.
The values that it teaches you is A, diligence, B, perseverance. There are many more downs than there are ups.
This is such a spectacular game. It's a matter of one's dedication, one's belief in themselves as an individual to achieve greatness.
The game of football has taught me faith, it's taught me commitment, and it's taught me to have a tremendous resolve in whatever I plan to do, I'm going to get it done.
You never dream, no matter how good you may be, that you'll ever be in the Hall of Fame.
Living with integrity, I certainly, honor the values of the Hall of Fame.
This is an honor bestowed not only on me, but for every teammate that I had. All of these people should be celebrated, not just me. It takes the moment from me to everyone but me.
Honor the heroes of the game.
Preserve its history.
Promote its values.
And celebrate excellence everywhere.
In 1971, the St. Louis Cardinals drafted a fierce 290-pound competitor named Dan Dierdorf. Dierdorf headed an offensive line that yielded the fewest sacks in the NFL for 5 straight years during the 70s. This relentless right tackle punished would-be defenders, whether the Cardinals chose to run or pass.
I always thought that I went through my years in the NFL like I had blinders on, like I was a racehorse. I saw nothing but the upcoming game and my upcoming opponent. I really had the ability to rule everything else out and make it inconsequential.
Dierdorf would be denied only 1 Pro Bowl appearance from 1974 through 1980, securing his place in pro football history.
All right, and with that, we'd like to welcome everyone here to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, obviously here in Canton, Ohio. We're happy with you as our latest installment of our Heart of a Hall of Famer series. If you couldn't tell by now, start paying attention, but today's program features Hall of Famer in gold jacket Dan Dierdorf, and we're honored to have him with us today. And we'll get into a little bit of his career and what he continues to do for the game of football as well as the program goes on. But before we get started, I do just want to kind of give you a kind of a glimpse into this program and this series, and it's one that we really hold near and dear to our hearts here at the Hall of Fame because it really focuses on a number of those bullet points you saw in our mission statement, that first video, to honor the heroes of the game, to preserve its history, to promote its values, and to celebrate excellence everywhere. Those values that we promote, that we're going to talk about today, are those of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence. And those values, as we saw there on the title slide, those aren't sports terms. Those values are life terms. They help you be a Hall of Famer in the classroom, a Hall of Famer at home, a Hall of Famer in business, in your career. And I think we're gonna have some great wisdom and some great stories as we go through our program today on those values and how they kind of help shape the life of Mr. Dierdorf. So we'll get into that here in a little bit. We do have to thank a number of people. First of all, we need to thank our folks at Extreme Networks for all they do for us here at the Hall of Fame and for schools across the country. We need to thank our teachers for opening up the schools and your classrooms today to embrace this message about character and the values that football can teach our youth. Lastly, we need to thank our students because, well, you guys are in charge today. You guys get to ask the questions. You guys kind of get to navigate where we're going to go with the conversation. So looking forward to hearing some of the questions you have, learn about a little bit of the research you've done on Mr. Dierdorf's career and what we're going to kind of get into today. So we thank you for that. We do have a number of schools tuning in. We have our folks out in Wisconsin at Frederick. I see them down there. They have they're waving there. We obviously have our students there in front of Mr. Dierdorf at Knifer Middle School there in Missouri. And then we have our folks from Canton McKinley. And I'm not seeing your guys' camera, but I'm hoping you guys can hear me and we'll be able to communicate maybe just via audio for our program today. And we'll test that out as we get into our Q&A. Lastly, I need to address some of our folks who just have viewing. I know we have a number of you across the country just tuning in to watch the program. And for those of you who are doing that, please submit any questions you may have either via the software or via Twitter. If you submit them via Twitter, please use our hashtag here at the Hall of Fame, which is hashtag HOFvalues, and include the Hall of Fame handle at ProFootballHOF. So thank you for that. All right. Now, we're almost done. The less I talk and the more Mr. Dierdorf talks, the better this program is going to be. But I do need to give him one last introduction. So I have a brief introduction we're going to read off, and then we'll get into our Q&A, maybe some opening remarks from our Gold Jacket. So being on the video, Mr. Dierdorf was a consensus All-American at Michigan in 1970. He possessed size, speed, quickness, discipline, intelligence, and consistency, all necessary attributes for an outstanding lineman. He seemed destined for stardom from the moment he joined the St. Louis Cardinals. He was their second-round draft choice and the 43rd player selected overall in the 1971 draft. Dierdorf excelled as an offensive lineman for 13 seasons from 1971 to 1983. He played both guard and tackle in his first 2 seasons before settling down as the permanent right tackle in his 3rd year. He was the ringleader of the line that only allowed the fewest sacks in NFC for 5 straight years in the mid-1970s. In 1975, the Cardinals set what was then a record only 8 sacks in 14 games. He proved to be durable through his entire career, playing in every game in his first 6 seasons, before moving to center in 1982 to help the team out in a situation there. Obviously, he was enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame here in Canton, Ohio in 1996. And one quote I would like to share with you guys, said about him, said by Mr. Dierdorf, says, quote, "You go for it, all the stops are out, caution is to the wind, and you're battling with everything you have. That's the real fun of the game," end quote. And I just love that quote. I thought it was great to just kind of display the passion and enthusiasm that it takes to play the game of pro football. So if we could all once, and I'll help you out here, unmute our mics. We're going to give one big, loud round of applause to truly one of the great players of the game and one of the great guys of the game, Mr. Dan Dierdorf.
Thank you.
All right, and then Mr. Dierdorf, I will turn this over to you, sir. If you have any opening remarks you would like to share with the student audience about maybe some of your experience or just thoughts on character in general.
All right. Well, thank you, Michael. Thank you for that nice welcome. And I was talking to the group here in St. Louis, Kirkwood to be precise, a little earlier before we started the program, and I was just talking about how much I really enjoy being in the presence of student athletes, because that takes a commitment. It's not easy. And again, I just feel a kindred spirit with everyone who's willing to do that. And I'm thrilled to be with you here today. I know that when I talk to the other guys in the Hall of Fame, if we had a common theme amongst ourselves, it would be that not one of us fell out of bed great. It wasn't preordained for any of us. That there were things that happened along the way where we had to do something to separate ourselves from everyone else. It wasn't just one of those things that was handed to any of us. And it happened at different stages of our life. I want to give you an example. I was an All-American in college. I'm in the College Football Hall of Fame. I'm in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'm in the State of Missouri Hall of Fame. I'm in the State of Michigan Hall of Fame. I've got all, and let me tell you something. When I was a sophomore in high school, I didn't even letter on my high school football team. When I was a senior in high school at Canton, Ohio, by the way, a city where high school football is really, really big, I went on a recruiting trip to Ohio State, and they didn't offer me a scholarship. I went on a recruiting trip to Michigan State. They didn't offer me a scholarship. Notre Dame didn't even invite me to come for a recruiting trip, and I ended up going to the University of Michigan because somebody backed out on a scholarship, and I ended up basically coming in through the back door. And then it was somewhere when I was 19 years old or so, when I was at Michigan, that it finally all started to come together for me. And whenever I'm with young people, I just try to make one point. You never know what time it's going to happen for you. It's different for everybody. The kid who's great at 10 isn't necessarily the kid who's great at 20. And it's something you should never give up. There's greatness in every single one of you. And we live in a country where if you work at it, if you apply yourself, if you commit yourself, there is literally nothing that you can't achieve. And I know that when you turn on the television, so much of the news is negative. So much of, it just emphasizes the negative. And don't let anyone else and their negativity drag you down. Don't let anyone's negativity keep you from having big dreams. Because I'm telling you, you can do it. And this is the greatest country in the world where we live right now, because every one of you can forge a path to accomplishing something really, really great. And, and I know so much of this program, they want you to emphasize character and all that. I mean, really, what is character? What is having good character? Well, to me, I think I'm like everybody else. I got the good Dan who sits on one shoulder, and I got the bad Dan who sits on the other shoulder. And every time I'm faced with a decision, they both pipe up and tell me something. You know what character really is? It's doing the right thing. And every one of us make multiple decisions a day. And we know deep inside which one of those decisions is the right decision. What's the right way to do it? And I'm telling you, to me, that's character. It's as simple as doing the right thing. And if I could say one other thing before we start taking questions, what one of the cornerstones, and a word that a lot of people throw around, but not everyone chooses to have it, it's integrity. Do you know what integrity is? It's making your word count for something. When you say it, do it. If you're not going to do it, don't say it. Don't tell somebody you're going to do something and then don't do it, because that is the opposite of integrity. And you will be judged all your life on the quality of your word. And it's not too young for you guys and ladies to figure that out. If you're going to say it, do it. And I'm telling you something, you will be a success. And I just have one last thing to say. One of the beauties of playing sports is We all have failed playing sports. You can't play without failing. You can't live life without experiencing some failures along the way. And how you deal with that, how you handle that, how you are mature enough to realize that that is a part of life, it will serve you really, really well. Nothing, you know how many people go through life so timid and so afraid to fail, they never try. They just find that common ground in the middle there somewhere where they can just never experience, never risk putting it all out there. When you play sports, the scoreboard at the end of that tells you whether you won or lost. And people who aren't afraid to fail, people who will lay it out on the line, are people that are going to be successful. And that's one of the beauties I've learned about the people that play sports. So, you know what? Character, it's just doing the right thing. Integrity, it's making your word count for something. And that's it. I'm done lecturing. But I'm telling you something, ladies and gentlemen, it's the truth. It's really that simple. It's really that simple. Don't be the person that when you say something, all the other people just nod their heads and go, yeah, that's really great. But guess what? That person's full of you know what. And that's not a great place to be. All right, Mike, what do you want to do here in terms of questions? And now that I've officially scared everybody and run them off.
I was going to say, wow, I think we might just be able to end the program right now and everyone would go on their ways, probably better human beings after that. So,
well, I don't know about that.
Great start to the program. That was unbelievable. If I can get everyone a piece of advice, if you don't have a piece of paper and a pen or anything to take notes on, I highly suggest you get something. If you'll see me, I'll be taking notes here as well. So I think we're gonna have some great stories and some great wisdom shared today. So I'm excited now after hearing that. I'm pumped up. I'm ready to run through a wall. I think for you, sir. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with the Q&A.
You need to get out more.
That also may be true.
All right. What do you want to do?
Let's do some Q&A. Let's start with the students right there in front of you. If we have a student there at Kniford Middle School to kick it off.
Who's going to decide who gets to ask the question? I think maybe I need professional help.
Well, I tell you what, you all were to raise our hand. Who wants to be brave enough to kind of get this started?
Who's got, you know what? You were first. Here we go. What's your name? What do you got?
What were some of the games in college and the NFL, if any?
The question was, what were some of my pregame rituals in college and the NFL? I wasn't superstitious in, some guys got to put the right sock on before the left sock and all this. I wasn't superstitious about that. I was a guy who I didn't talk much. I had a singular focus when it came to playing football. You saw in that I only saw what was right in front of me, and I tried to focus. And that focus meant that I never talked smack. I never really said anything terrible to any, once or twice maybe, but not only when I was really goaded into it. But if I had a pregame ritual, I wanted to be by myself. Now that's in a locker room, but I would turn and face into my locker, and I would literally just try to exclude every other unnecessary thought from my mind other than what I had to do. And if that was, playing across from a certain guy who was really good, all I did was focus on that guy and what I had to do. So I guess you could have, some of my teammates, some of them did a myriad of different things. Some of them had superstitions on how they got dressed. Some of them went in the bathroom and threw up. Some of them, nervousness. So everybody's different. To me, it was singular focus. Yes, sir. Right in the back. My favorite moment in the NFL. Well, I'd love to tell you that it was when we won the Super Bowl, but that never happened. I learned. I tell you, I learned some humility in the NFL because I came from a very successful high school program. A very successful college program, and then I came to St. Louis, and I lost more football games my rookie year with the Cardinals than I had lost my entire high school and collegiate career. And so the favorite memories, I'll tell you what they were. It was the relationships that I formed with my teammates. Playing a team sport, to me, is the best way to play sports because you learn that you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for the guy beside you, the guy behind you, every other guy in your locker room. You're doing it for them. And that's probably, we had a lot, don't get me wrong, we had a lot of great games. We beat the Dallas Cowboys here in St. Louis a number of times. We going to Pro Bowls, clearly the greatest thing that ever happened to me in playing professional football was being elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Tens of millions of people have played high school football, and that's a big old funnel at the top, and it gets down to where it just drip, drip, drip out of the bottom, and there are fewer than 200 football players who've been recognized in the Pro Football Hall of Fame over the last 80 years of professional football. So if you don't realize how fortunate you are to be in that club, you got something really wrong with you.
Very good. All right, I think then, Mr. Dierdorf, if you don't mind, we're going to go out to one of our schools in Wisconsin. We'll get back to that soon.
Okay.
He can think of it. We're going to go out to our friends there at Frederick. If we have a student out there that's ready to ask their first question of our Hall of Fame.
What advice would you give a senior or junior making decisions about their future?
And could you hear that, sir?
No, tell me.
It was what advice would you give a junior or senior that's looking to, I believe it was decide if they should pursue football on the college level?
Well, again, first of all, college has to want you. So you have to, you have to be good enough to do that. So how do you do that? The advice I could give is pay attention to your coaches. Your coaches have a plan, and if they're a good coach, they've got an individual plan for you on what you can do to get better to play at the collegiate level. And understand something. Not everybody's going to go to Alabama. Not everybody's going to go to Michigan or Ohio State. There are hundreds of college football teams at the Division I, the Division II, the Division III level, and playing at any one of those can be a real life-altering and a very, very wonderful experience. So, hey, the only thing I can tell you is if you think you're working hard now, kick that up 50%. Work harder than you ever thought possible and see what happens.
All right, then we'll go to our friends there. I think I just saw them adjusting their cameras there at Canton McKinley. If Dana, if you're there, if we have a question for Mr. Dierdorf.
Hi, Mr. Dierdorf. I wanted to know, do you have a saying or a motto that you live your life by?
Mike, could you translate that?
Yeah, absolutely. It was. If you have a motto or a saying that you kind of live your life by.
Oh, well, I talked to the what I said at the beginning about it. It's really kind of simple. I really do have those two guys sitting on my shoulders all the time, and sometimes the bad guy won, but by and large, it's so simple to just try to do, all of us, each one of us inside, inherently, we know which one is the right road to take. We know which is the right thing to do. And there'll always be people pulling you in the other direction. So I guess if I could just pull one motto out, it would be do the right thing. What you know to be the right thing, not what somebody else is telling you is the right thing, what you know inside to be the right thing. If you do that, I guarantee you the quality of your life is going to be darn good. And by the way, for you folks there at McKinley High School, I went to what's now Glen Oak High School, but my mother and father are both McKinley High School graduates. So I've always said, go Bulldogs.
Well, you'll be familiar with that, Mr. Dierdorf. There's quite a big football game coming up this weekend here in Canton, Ohio. You may be familiar with that. Another school down the road that I won't mention in front of those students.
Is it the McKinley-Massillon game?
It is, sir. I was going to let you say that other word.
But that's all right. That's for people who didn't grow up in Ohio. That's a pretty big deal. Pretty big deal. Is it still on statewide television?
That I do not know.
Yeah.
That I'm not sure of.
All right. Well, good luck, McKinley.
Very good. We'll go back to those students right there in front of you, then, Mr. Dierdorf, if we have more questions.
Right there. What were my biggest struggles in college? Calling my parents. Well, first of all, I'm not afraid to admit this. Being from Ohio, I went to Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is about 3 hours away. And when my mom and dad dropped me off at the beginning of my freshman year, I stood out in front of the dormitory and I watched my mom and dad's car drive down the road, and I saw that Ohio plate get to the corner, and then it made a turn and drove out of view, and I had tears in my eyes. I had never been that scared, that homesick, that alone in my entire life. I was devastated. I just didn't. I underestimated going away to college and how much I enjoyed being at home. And you know what? I had to grow up. I had, as every college freshman does. But you know what? I was fortunate. I had the opportunity to be a part of a team. They were all in the same boat that I was, and I grew up a lot those first couple of weeks of my freshman year in college, because you're on your own for the first time. That can be really rewarding, but it can be really scary, and it's kind of balancing both of those at the same time.
Very good. All right, let's go back out to our friends in Wisconsin. If we have a second question from you folks.
What was one of your best games, and can you describe it?
And the question there, sir, was what was one of your best games, probably any level, and can you describe it?
Well, when I was a junior in college at Michigan, sorry about this, you folks back in Canton, but Ohio State came to play us in Ann Arbor. They had just been on the cover of Sports Illustrated the week before as the greatest college team in the history of college football. They were undefeated the previous year. They were undefeated that year, coming into the final game of the season to play us. This team was so good at the college level. Their average margin of victory was 37 points. That's the closest anybody ever got to them. And we beat them 24-12. And it was Bo Schembechler's first year at Michigan, and that really kick-started the 10-year war that he had with Woody Hayes, and a lot of hard feelings on both sides. But that's probably the most satisfying experience on the football field I ever had.
Very cool. Now let's go back out then to our folks there at Canton McKinley, if we have a question there for Mr. Dierdorf.
What were you like as a high school student?
The question there, sir, was what were you like as a high school student?
Shy. I was bigger than everybody else, and so I always felt self-conscious when I walked into a room, because I knew everybody. I mean, I was really a lot bigger than everybody else, and I always felt self-conscious. And I had a lot of friends, and it wasn't like I sat in my closet crying, but I probably worried about what other people thought of me more than I should have. I wish, looking back on it, I'll be the first to tell you, I wish I would have applied myself a little more in the classroom. I got B's. I was smart enough to get A's. And for some reason, I ended up being satisfied with B's, and that was a mistake. And I'm 66 years old, and it's a mistake I regret to this day. So I was a nice guy, never got in any fights, never got in any trouble, and but I wish I would have worked harder at my academics.
Very good. And then we have a question that was actually submitted through one of the folks that is just watching. You don't see them on your screen, but they want to know, Mr. Dierdorf, what was an example of a time where you persevered through some adversity, whether it be off the football field or on?
When I was a rookie with the Cardinals, I got drafted by the Cardinals, and they had this great offensive line. And even here I was an All-American at Michigan, and I show up in St. Louis, and I'm 21 years old, and they've got this great offensive line. These guys are 30 and 30. I mean, they're grown men. I'm not yet. I'm either physically or emotionally. And I remember calling my mother and father about, I don't know, a week or so into training camp when I was a rookie, and telling them that I'm going to get cut. I'm not going to, I don't think I'm good enough to make this team. So I had a lot of adversity because my self-confidence was not really high. And again, though, I was faced with a choice. I either bear down and do everything I can do to survive and to get better, or I could just go home and say, I'm going to find something else to do. And Plan B was never an option. So I fought through it, and by the start of the season, I was a starter. So maybe I was a little paranoid for nothing.
Very good. And then we'll go back to that live audience in front of you, Mr. Dierdorf. We have another student athlete there that's ready to ask a question.
You pick. Yeah.
What was your biggest inspiration or motivation?
My biggest inspiration and motivation. Two things. One, I had a wonderful set of parents, my mother and father. My dad never played sports, but my dad was such a rock, such a positive influence in terms of he just wanted me to succeed, and he wanted me to be happy doing it. And my dad put no pressure on me whatsoever to play. And I know sometimes parents can get in the way. Their passion is such that every now and then, sometimes you might feel, wow, I wish that I had the father that no matter what I did was good enough. It was always worthy of a pat on the back, and I will always be, I'll always be appreciative of that. My dad gets a lot of credit for where I am today.
All right, we're gonna go back out. We'll take
one more here.
Perfect.
Right.
How much has football changed since you played?
How much
has football changed?
Oh, how much has it changed? Football has changed. Well, the game itself is still the same game. I was a lineman, and I will tell you the game has never changed. The team with the best group of linemen is going to win the game. If you control the line of scrimmage, you're going to win a football game. No offense to all you wonderful running backs and wide receivers. Without a great offensive line, you guys are just guys. You got to have – if you can win the line of scrimmage, and more often than not, you're going to win the football game. So I know I'm a little prejudiced along those lines, but I'm telling you right now, it's an age-old truth. Now, how much has the game changed? Well, I can just tell you oh boy, I don't want to sound like an old fart when I say this. So when I played the game in the NFL, there was no such thing as look at me. A teammate never did anything to separate himself from his other teammates. And unfortunately, and I blame, it's not their fault, but ESPN gets a lot of this because now everybody wants to they want to have a Sports Center moment. They want to do something where they can. I mean, we live in an era now where I watch a football game on Monday night or Sunday afternoon, and a guy makes a tackle. A guy makes a tackle after the running back runs for it, and then he runs 10 yards downfield and is like, looking at the crowd going, well, excuse me, but that's your job. That's what you're supposed to do. And that's, to me, maybe the biggest way the game has changed. There's a whole lot more individual celebration and recognition than what I was used to when I was a player. The game, though, in some regards, will never change. If you win the line of scrimmage, you're going to win the football. Tom Brady is the best quarterback in football, the New England Patriots quarterback. They lost the Super Bowl to the New York Giants because the New York Giants defensive line steamrolled him the whole game. And you know something? I don't care if you're the greatest quarterback in the world. If you're flat on your back, you're just another guy. And that's the truth. Okay.
Very good.
Let's move on.
Let's go out to our friends there in Wisconsin. See if our friends out there at Frederick have a question.
What was the most challenging thing for you to do in your football career?
And the question there, sir, was what was the most challenging thing for you to do in your football career?
The most challenging thing. To do the work it took to do in the off season. Playing is fun. It's the other months when you're not in the season. It's doing everything that needs to be done to get better. To me, that was always the hardest part because that took the most discipline. It took, when you're not going to play a football game until September, it's easy in March to say, well, I really don't have to kill myself today. This is just March. Well, you know something? That's a cancer that can eat away at you and ultimately will destroy you. Let me tell you something about hard work. All right. The New England Patriots are probably the most successful team in pro football for the last 15 years. They have an off-season workout program that starts, in February. And they chart the guys' participation. They chart their goals, whether they met their strength, all those. And what's at stake for the player is that they have a parking lot, but they have one spot that's right next to the front door. And the winner of the off-season conditioning program gets that spot. He gets his name on a sign, and he gets that spot. Now, these are guys making millions of dollars a year, and they fight for that parking spot in the off-season. Well, I'm talking to Bill Belichick, the head coach of the Patriots, and I said, Bill, who won it this year? And he goes, well, let me just tell you this. 7 of the last 8 years, that parking spot belonged to Tom Brady. And then Belichick says to me, he goes, it's easy to be a good coach when your best players are your hardest workers. And so take a lesson from Tom Brady. It's what you do year-round that pays off. And that's what was always the most challenging for me because the bad Dan on that one shoulder is going, Dan, you don't really have to work out today. Football season doesn't start for 6 months. Well, that's the way losers talk.
And to your point, Mr. Deere, if we did a program with Ron Mix, who for you don't know is another fellow Hall of Famer offensive lineman, and one thing he said, the common thread between all of our Hall of Famers is that they were always the hardest working player on their team. And that goes to the point, too, where you started the program and said you didn't fall out of bed great. It's the process.
Nope.
It's a grind. So I thought that was appropriate to share there. If we can go out to our friends there at Canton McKinley, if we have a question for Mr. Dierdorf.
If you didn't play football, where do you think you would be now?
And the question there, sir, was if you didn't play football, what would you have done?
I might have gone to law school, or I might have been a school teacher. I was always fascinated by the law, but I'm not sure I was smart enough to go to law school. Now, that really doesn't sound great. Don't worry, I'm going to talk my way out of this. I love working with kids. I love, and I don't get a chance to do it because I'm not a teacher, but I can only imagine that one of the most satisfying parts of being a teacher is after you've been one long enough where you can see kind of your body of work and you can see what a lot of your former students have gone on and accomplished. And I can't imagine the amount of personal satisfaction that must deliver. And that would, to me, that's something that would have really appealed to me, to have been a teacher for 10 years and now see one of my former students who's just making everybody proud. That's got to be a great feeling.
Very cool. We're going to go back into that live audience in front of you there, sir, if we have a question or two there.
You pick. Okay.
Can you share a time during your youth that you had to take on a leadership role?
In my youth, when I had to take on a leadership role. Well, for me, it was more when I was in college. I had a very demanding coach, and you guys are kind of young, but he was very famous. A guy named Bo Schembechler was a coach at Michigan, and he called me in. He called me in before the start of my senior year, and he said, Dan, I need to talk to you. And I said, okay. And he goes, you're the best player on our team. Regardless of position, you're the best football player on our team. And wow, this guy had never really complimented me before. I said, geez, thanks, coach. And he goes, no, don't thank me, because here's what's going to happen. Because of you and your position, everybody on the team knows who you are. If they sense in any way I'm showing you any favoritism whatsoever, I'll lose the team. So I'm here to tell you that nothing you do is going to be good enough. Nothing you do will get a pat on the back from me this entire football season. And I was faced with a situation because initially I got upset. I'm going, what did I do to deserve this? And then I realized what it was he was really trying to do. And, I was at that crossroads. Which way am I going to go? And you know what? I realized what he was trying to accomplish. And so I tried to be the leader, and I lived an entire football season without ever, because I knew it was for the betterment of the entire team. Wasn't easy, but I did it. If that's leadership, that was my version of it. I was never a rah-rah guy. I always believed that you led by example. If I destroyed the guy across from me, I thought that was showing some leadership. The guy across from me didn't appreciate it, but that wasn't my concern. Right here. Speak up there. That's a great question. Question was, when I got to the NFL, did I have a plan on what I would do if I got injured? Yes, I did, because I was born with a real fear of failure. I wanted to succeed at something. Didn't have to be football. I just didn't want to be the object of anyone's pity. I didn't want anyone looking at me going, wow, what a disappointment. That would have crushed me. It would have crushed me. So yes, I always had a plan. I looked at real estate. I looked at some different things. And, you know, back then when I played, you have to understand something. We didn't make the kind of money these guys are making. We didn't make money that we were going to be set for the rest of our lives. In fact, we all worked in the offseason. And then I was very fortunate in that I got an opportunity to work at KMOX Radio. Somehow the first time they turned on that microphone, I just started to talk, and it just came out. And I made a decision very early that I was going to try to develop a broadcasting career. And I worked very hard at it, and it really paid off. I did network television for 30 years. I've done radio. I've done hockey. I've done morning, afternoon drive. It didn't make it. I worked very hard at being a professional broadcaster, and I had a plan. That's a good question. Can we stay here, or you got Mike? You got one somewhere else?
If you have a hand up, I'll stay there. If not,
we got arms up all over the place here.
All right, stay there.
Right here.
Out of the gold standards of character, which do you believe are the most important?
Well, the question was out of the gold standard of character.
Gold standards, sir, if you don't have it in front of you, are commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence.
Well, excellence is the byproduct, I think, of all the others. That's the end game of all the others. I'm just a huge believer. I know they're all important in their own way, but I'm just a big believer in integrity. I think being a quality human being, I mentioned to you earlier about if you're going to say it, do it, make your word count for something. The people who succeed in life are people that other people can rely upon, that they can count on you. When you say, I'll have this for you on Thursday, have it for them. If not Wednesday, have it for them on Thursday. It's how you will always be successful. And I'm not talking about athletics now. I'm talking about having the moral strength to stand up and say, this is what I stand for. Don't be afraid to stand for something. Even if it's the unpopular, you will always have people who want to run counter to what you believe. And you've got to put that noise out of it. You don't need friends like that. Find friends who think and believe in the same things that you do. But to me, there's nothing more important than integrity. Because you know something? It's not a car. I don't care how much money you have, you can't buy it. It's not for sale on the internet. It's inside of you, and ultimately, as you go through life, it's how you're going to be judged. And how successful you will be depends on how much of it you have.
Very good, sir. And I think one thing we always hear the role of negative peer pressure. But there's such a thing as positive peer pressure as well. I think it's kind of what you were talking about there a little bit. And people always want to go counter you and not need them in your lives. Can you give me an example, give the crowd an example of someone who provide you with some positive peer pressure throughout your college career, your professional career, or life after football?
Well, that's one of the beautiful parts about playing athletics, and in my situation. Now, when I was in high school, I wrestled. I was obviously I was a heavyweight, and I did track and field. I was a shot put thrower and a discus thrower, and I had college scholarship offers both in wrestling and in track and field. But I loved football because it's a team sport. Now, we had a way of looking at our teammates, the guys we on the team with, and let me tell you something. We didn't judge each other by who went to the most Pro Bowls or who caught the most touchdown passes. There's a compliment that we could pay one another, and it didn't happen all that often, but it was the ultimate compliment. And in the world where I lived, in sports, the ultimate compliment was that you as an individual, through your work ethic, through your commitment, through your desire to be good, regardless of the cost, the commitment that it took, because you had those qualities, you elevated the play of the people around you. So it no longer became just your production or what you were doing. You were such a positive force that you elevated the performance and the play of your teammates. That is the ultimate compliment. There is nothing anyone can say about you better than I made the people around me better people, better competitors, better human beings. As you go through life, I guarantee you, if you end up being one of those kind of people, your friends will look at you with admiration for your entire life, because people like that are few and far between. But every one of us has a chance to be that person. All right.
Let's go out to our friends there in Wisconsin if we have a question for Mr. Dierdorf.
Yeah. What is a skill you learned in football that has helped you throughout the rest of your life?
That's a very good question. I learned that, first of all, football, you end up on the ground after almost every play. So you learn that everything starts with getting back up. Some people, when they hit the ground, their instinct is to stay there. Some people, their instinct is to bounce right back up and get right back to it. And if I learned one thing in playing football, it is getting back up and doing better the next time around. I loved playing a team sport in the sense that there's a tremendous satisfaction that comes from being a part of a team. When you realize that the welfare of the group is more important than the welfare of the individual. And when you learn to make that sacrifice and you learn to make that commitment to your teammates more than making the commitment to yourself, those are lessons that will carry on the rest of your life. I truly believe that leaves the football field, the basketball court, the soccer field, and they will be with you, and they will be your friend and your ally for the rest of your life.
Very good. We had one question that was submitted via Twitter that I wanted to interject, and you talked about a little bit earlier, Mr. Dierdorf, with the fact you never played in Super Bowl, never won a Super Bowl. So the question is, would you trade your Hall of Fame ring for a Super Bowl ring?
Not in 10 million years. The backup punter has a Super Bowl ring. So the equipment manager has a Super Bowl ring. The trainer has a Super Bowl ring. So the answer to your question is, I want to make sure no one misunderstood me there. That would be a negative.
Very, very good. That's kind of what I thought you would say, but I appreciate that from your end there, sir. So we'll go back to the live audience there in front of you. Maybe one more question.
One more question. Oh my God, the pressure of it all. All right, who's got $20? I'll answer the question. Anybody? You pick. I can't do it. I don't. And we'll take two because we'll get it. We're taking two because I'm a Hall of Famer. We can do whatever I want.
I'm not going to argue.
Did I what? Did I ever get badly hurt playing football? Yes, one time I got a pretty serious knee injury, of all things on an extra point. And somebody fell on my leg from the side, and I had to have I missed most of a football season after having had knee surgery. But and then one time I broke my jaw. Yeah, I had that was not fun. No, I'll tell you one quick story. It was a cheap shot. This guy hit me after the play was over on the side of my helmet, and he broke my jaw in a couple of plays. And I had my jaws wired shut for 6 weeks. Just clamp your jaws and just say, how would you like to do this for 6 weeks? Well, it's not going to take you very long. I'm telling you something you can't do with your jaws wired shut. What is that? Eat. I lost 55 pounds in 6 weeks because I couldn't eat. The only thing you get down is what you can strain through your teeth, which is, broth or coffee or milk or whatever. Every night as I would drive home from practice, I would come to a stop in rush hour traffic, and on the other side, I was starving to death. I mean, it was a bad experience. There would be a billboard on the other side of the highway for McDonald's, and they had like a 60-foot long quarter pounder with cheese on this billboard where like the grease droplets on it were the size of a basketball. And I would sit in my car every night looking at that billboard, and I had a tear rolling down my cheek because I wanted to go over and eat the billboard. I would have eaten the paper that picture was printed on. So I digress. All right, one more. We got one more. Yeah, one more. You pick. If I could relive one moment of my life, what it would be? Could I amend that moment just a little bit? It would be when I stood at the podium in Canton, Ohio, and I looked out over the crowd. My high school band was the band that was there playing. They erected bleachers off to the side because there were like 300 people that I went to high school with. I'm looking out at my high school coach. I'm looking out at my teammates from high school, from college, from the NFL, and I'm standing there at the pinnacle moment of my life, and my father wasn't there because my dad had died about 10 years prior to that. My mother was still alive, and she was there, but I will always lament all my life that my dad couldn't have been there for that wonderful moment for me. That's it, Mike. That's all I got.
Very good. Well, I'm going to ask you to do a little bit more. I'm going to ask you to have any closing remarks, anything we didn't talk about that you hope to touch on, or just a final point to drive home before we wrap it up.
No, I'm not going to lecture anybody. I just want to say it's been a real treat. The group here in Kirkwood, so attentive, so respectful. I don't know what you got out of this, but I'll tell you, I'm going to leave here with a lot more than I came with. It's always wonderful to be in the company of bright, smart, really nice, good young people. And thanks to the group in Wisconsin, thanks to Canton McKinley, and again, I got more out of this than I'm sure you did. thanks for being here today. Thank you.
If we all give them one round of applause, all mute everybody. Perfect. And thank you, Mr. Dierdorf, from all of our staff here, from David Baker on down to Jerry Shock. I know you worked with a lot on this program, so thank you for your time, and thank you for all the knowledge you shared to all the students. So
Glad to do it. Thank you, Mike. Thanks, everybody.
Perfect. And this will end our program. So, Mr. Dierdorf, you're welcome to stay there and hang out with those student athletes as long as you like, and I know you're a busy man, so they'll take good care of you there, and we'll see you in Canton shortly.
Okay, you got it. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, students, real quick. This is what I would like.